News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
I'm Allan Gilbreth with Dark Oak. Excuse me, I got where I couldn't talk. DarkOakMedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian, and man, is this day ripe with a lot of holidays. But the one I want to focus on today is National Flannel Day.
Oh my gosh, really? Okay.
Is my picture up there?
Probably.
Okay.
It's also National Umbrella Day, but National Flannel Day.
Okay, so that's a wide-ranging discussion. You got all your home improvement people. You've got all the grunge people from the early 90s.
Oh, yeah.
And the history of the flannel, which
Really?
actually goes much back farther than you think.
Okay, we need to unpack this a little, Max. So let me set the table here, and then I think that's going to be our first order of business. That's pretty good. National, is it international or national?
Just national.
Okay, National Flannel Day. Let me make a note of that here. So, okay, that's a good one because I have to believe many people here in the Mid-South are flannel enthusiasts. I know I am.
Oh.
I've got my flannel shirt right behind me.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, if you're watching the show, you'll see it on the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page or the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. Well, if you want to weigh in, you can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989.
Show us your most unique fashion of flannel.
Absolutely. So, okay, we're gonna get to the flannel discussion in a minute. Also, while we're setting the table here, if you go on over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page, you'll see a couple of posts we've made. Allan's made posts throughout the week. I got to give you credit, man. I used to, accuse you of not taking pictures or getting visual evidence of some of the work you've been doing, but you've been posting some of the projects you're working on, and I'm sure, and we're probably going to be discussing that shortly.
Oh, we are.
And also, if you check that out, you'll see the must-have item of the week that we didn't get to last week, so we're going to bring that back. We got a little chatty with Lynn Neal and ran out of time. With
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Really?
And by the way, it was a lot of fun, Lynn, if you're out there, having you on the show last week, and we'll be doing that again.
You can tell that dude is a race car driver.
A lot of energy, though.
A lot
man.
of energy.
I wish I had some
goodness.
of that. And also, you'll see in our Great Moments in Building History, in honor of the big game, I guess we have to be careful. We have to call it the big game here.
You can call it whatever you want. I call it an excuse to watch puppies.
Okay. Well, whatever that means. So, okay, the big game is this weekend. It's coming up this Saturday. And so we thought in our Great Moments in Building History, in honor of the big game, why don't we talk about the home of the very first big game, which is the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. They celebrated their 100-year anniversary recently. A lot of history there. And, so it's a very cool structure that we're going to discuss. As I mentioned, we've got Allan's Week in Review. We've got our must-have item of the week. I had a very satisfying and interesting experience involving, leverage science. I was moving some serious beams this week using a pulley system that I devised and everything.
And it's leverage.
Leverage and everything. And so we're going to unpack that and discuss, safe ways to do stuff like that.
Okay.
So, but Max, I'm really intrigued. National Flannel Day. You said there's some history here.
Well, flannel, you'll be happy, Allan. Let's set the Wayback Machine. Some people suggest that the early origins of flannel could be traced back to Wales during the 16th century. And during those times, the fabric was called Welsh cotton, which was kind of strange as the material is not actually made from cotton, but rather coarse woolen fabric.
Right.
And then in the 17th century rather, is when we get the term flannel. It started being used, obviously, in France. And then by
Flannel is the French pronunciation? Yeah.
Yes. And then by the 19th century, you have towns in Wales like Hay-on-Wye that became the epicenters of flannel production. And then on into eras like the Civil War, people used flannels to make their undershirts, even like during World War I and World War II, because flannel was seen as sort of a symbol of ruggedness and was worn by a lot of blue-collar workers. And then so National Flannel Day National Flannel Day is obviously in honor of that. And I want to give you one more fun little fact. There was a slang back in the Old West. They called someone a flannel mouth.
What does that mean?
Well, back in the Old West, a flannel mouth was used to describe a salesman or politician who is fast and a smooth talker.
Is that a compliment, or is that? I mean, that doesn't sound. It sounds like a
All right, it's like
con man.
All right, that's like saying Chicago is the windy city. It had nothing to do with the weather.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
I know
there
what
you
it had to do with the crooked politicians out there. So, wait, you said flannel. I'm writing all this stuff down, Max. So, flannel mouth.
Somebody was a flannel mouth. That means they were a smooth talker, smooth like flannel. Yeah.
Exactly.
But Max, back in the day, you said flannel was made of wool and everything. It was
It is
probably a
made of
little more
worsted wool.
itchy.
No,
Huh?
no, it's made out of worsted wool. It was all right. Rather than the thick bound wool like a kilt,
Yeah.
something like that. At the time, there was a change in the weaving on how you could run a weave. There were inventions in this. And throughout the Great Britain Isles, especially around Welsh or your large sheep populations, they began weaving a finer cloth.
Right.
And because they were using what is called a worsted wool, a.k.a. a treated wool, these were very durable shirts that were not too warm and not too cold. You know, they weren't big, thick, burly things anymore, so now you could move a little better. And flannel just kind of took off.
I mean, it kind of, to your point, because they actually said that flannel has like a 4-stage production. Yeah, like you said, it was treated. So, but the first thing is the production of the material, the spinning of the yarn, the fabric weaving, and the final treatment. But eventually, around the 20th century, they mixed in silk and cotton.
Oh, yeah.
Well, flannel shirts today are a lot more comfortable. However, I will say I almost always wear it over a t-shirt or something like that. I mean, but you know what I never understood is I love my flannel shirt, but I will never wear it when I'm doing carpentry work. I don't know why that's the go-to shirt. You can't get the sawdust out of the shirt. You ever done that? You cut something with the table saw, you're covered in sawdust, it doesn't come out, man. Why would you want to wear a flannel shirt for that? You need something you can, brush off or whatever. I don't know. I don't know how Al Borland does it over on, but I mean, that's something I just didn't understand. You don't have an answer for that, do you?
It's never bothered me.
He also has a heavy beard, so he's got a lot of places where sawdust would get in.
Well, I like this National Flannel Day. It's a wholesome day. It's a practical, it is a great invention, and it's the perfect layering shirt. That's what I do. Like if it's not quite cold enough for a jacket, but it's not warm enough for a t-shirt. So, and
I would be remiss when it comes to practicality to also mention the fact that it's National Umbrella Day.
Okay, well,
we're experiencing a little of that Pineapple Express this week.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, that's a good one, Max. Well, there's a lot out on the table, and there's even more that we haven't teased, and that's going to be good. So we're going to get to that when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio, but we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to do Allan's Week in Review.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
The baler can flatten a car engine. It can cut off your arm and crush your entire body without skipping a beat. How many people a year do you think get their arms cut off in a baler?
Baler? I hardly know her.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Allan, what's the coolest thing you've ever crushed in a baler?
Yes.
Car engine?
Or who?
Yeah. Allan's a watermelon man. Loaded up with watermelons and, let it go. The Gallagher approach.
That's been done. Yeah.
Okay. And we'll come back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to watch the show at the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page and the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. And we also invite you to check out the posts we've made over at the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page. There's a couple up there that I put. There's a few that Allan put up through the week, and we have a must-have item of the week that we'll get to. We promise we'll get to it this week because we missed it last time. I just want to mention something, too, and this is pretty fun. 2024, we're already deep into it. We're already into it the second month. But, Allan, next week we'll be doing our first remote broadcast, which is always fun. So we'll be at the home show of the Mid-South over there at the Agri Center.
Absolutely.
It's going to be next weekend. It's always a really fun event, and we'll be As long as technology cooperates, we'll be broadcasting live. But Allan, you always bring the swag. You have the Tool Talk Radio giveaways, and
there might be some bags, and there might be some magnets, and a few other choice things.
And it's always fun to meet people. So if you listen to the show and you're over there, we always love to say hello, and it's great to meet you. So and get your feedback, get your constructive criticism on how we can improve the show. Maybe we don't.
And
want
my
that.
favorite part is when they get me and you mixed up.
Oh,
and ask you cooking questions.
Yeah,
that's the best part.
Don't ask me anything about cooking. It's pretty useless. So, but anyway, that'll be next weekend, next Saturday. I'm sorry, at the Agri Center. So check it out. All right, Allan, let's get to it, man.
Oh, the humanity.
Of course, that hideous scream means that it's time to discuss what Allan did this week in Allan's Week in Review. So,
Can you guess which one of those screams came from a goat?
I don't. I always forget that. That's a goat sound. All right.
Yeah, and that's kind of appropriate this week.
Okay.
Well, let's see. I would like to give a quick shout out to one of the neighbors of one of the properties that I was working at this week. It is the Tale of Two Roosters.
Okay.
They are big. They are beautiful. They love to stand in the middle of the road. And one of them is an opera singer. The other proves to you that family talent does not always pass equally.
Yeah, you're going to have some explaining to do.
Is it
Yeah.
family talent or family talons?
Well, talent in this case of one of them honestly crows like Pavarotti. He gets out there and produces the most amazing cock-a-doodle-doo you've ever heard. The other one that looks just like him, sadly, not so much.
Okay.
Singing he did not get the crowing gene.
It
very
generally
good.
works that way. One person hogs it all, or one
sibling got it all.
Yeah.
This poor thing walked out and looked all puffed up and proud and ready to crow. And we just heard the other one, so we were standing there looking, and this thing sounded like that goat screaming. It was like, whack!
It makes me think of the Riddler singing off-key Ave Maria versus Pavarotti.
Yes. So it just a quick little side note of nonsense, the things you see on job sites.
Oh, yeah. And these days, too, I mean, there's a lot of, like we said, even the hipsters in the suburbs are getting chickens and roosters
They got
and
chickens
stuff,
and
man.
quail and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
So these are some very, one of them is a very talented bird. The other,
Not so
much. So if you can't sing, don't worry about it. I know chickens can't even crow. So.
Yeah.
To dive into actually what's going on this week, oddly, I wound up doing a lot of inspections.
Okay, let's just say this, because one thing that's you and I differ in some ways. I work with a lot of residential people. I deal loosely with code enforcement. I don't have to talk to them as much as you do, but
Right.
You are in a professional medical field. You know every state regulation. You know every little nook and so this is your wheelhouse.
And one of them was a residential inspection, one was a commercial. And the reason I thought these would be great to bring up this week is that in both cases they were for maybe we're going to sell it, maybe we're not kind of idea.
Right.
And the idea was, what are we going to get into if we really want to, go for top dollar and dress it up?
Right.
And I got to thinking, and I said, that is a great idea this time of year. And the other thing I'm going to throw in is gardening this time of year, because you're not all covered in weeds and sticks and bugs and stuff, and you can see your yard and you can see your landscaping. And if you've got any rough spots you want to smooth out, now's the time to do it while it's not growing and you're back there battling a jungle.
Wait, but this home evaluation intrigued me. So
And this was part of it.
Oh, okay.
Because, the first thing we did was we walked around the exterior of the property, and I was kind of like, well, what happened over here? Well, we were doing this, and then it got all hot and growed up, but right now it's not.
So they
It's
started
perfect.
a project that they
Exactly.
didn't.
And as I said, right now is the perfect time to get out here and do a little bit of work and get a big, big return.
Mm-hmm.
Then we started walking through the house and the property, and with that fresh set of eyes, stuff that you've seen 100 times now is very obvious to somebody else.
Here's what Bingo. It's funny. I was going to literally use the word fresh set of eyes because that's the thing. It's like, you may in your mind think, well, we're not moving for 10 years. Who cares? You don't know that. Nobody ever really know. It's always a good idea to keep your house, I would say, market ready. Life happens and you don't know. And that outside fresh set of eyes is the one that can help you go because you live with things all the time and you may not realize that thing going on behind your wall that's bowing out, that's doing whatever that's a problem. And you
it's little things like, that window sticks just a little bit, but all you got to do is tap it on this side. Well,
if you sell your house, that's got to be fixed.
Let's go through and take a look at all of these. And my favorite word here is niggling. Just little annoying things that you just brush over or don't care about.
Right.
But the next person coming in, and this is also a great thing to do before you begin, and everybody does this in March. We all spring clean.
Yeah.
The weather's finally decent. You can open the doors and windows, and, you want to get rid of the winter clutter. But if you've already got a hit list, well, this window sticks, and that doorknob has been loose for how long? And when was the last time we changed those filters?
Right.
Of big time to hit all that. But I think it's a great idea to maybe swap up with a buddy. And, you'll come over and walk through my house, and I'll come over and walk through yours.
Right.
And, then we'll go get some pizza afterwards. But, bring you a little checklist and kind of like, all right, let's just start with the front door. Does that need to be refinished?
Right.
Does it, and my favorite thing is, of course, like toilet handles, doorknobs, cabinet knobs. Maybe there's a cabinet knob missing and you just grab the edge of it and little things you just gloss by. And instead of waiting on it to become a panic, like, oh my goodness, Bob got a promotion, but we got to go to Toledo. Now suddenly you're trying to do all this at once. It's kind of a great idea. And also it kicks into decluttering.
It does. One last thing about this outside fresh set of eyes, though, because you're really making me think. I think what's also valuable about that is sometimes we get an idea and we fall in love with that idea or we fixate on an idea. I see this all the time. I'll go to somebody wants me to build them something and I say, well, have you considered maybe doing this one little thing differently? And it never even occurred to them that they can do that or something. And there may be. You may go into somebody's house and do a home evaluation and they say, hey, in a few years, we're probably thinking of moving. You might say, if you opened up this one wall, you would suddenly connect these two rooms.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big selling feature. It would cost you probably a couple $1,000s or something. And when the light bulb goes off, that's really useful for people to, an extra set of eyes is always useful. Even if you're a professional, I think it's helpful to have an outsider.
Well, and also, I extended this out to the patio as well. I've got a lot of friends that have done some pretty interesting patio work, and some of it is really good, and some of it is just, in my opinion, in the way. You just kind of walk out and go, all right, let's think about the ergonomics of how you live. Yeah. You got 3 dogs, and you got this maze of things that they got to run through to get into the backyard. Well, we could accomplish the same thing if we moved a few things and made things a little easier. And a big thing I want to throw in to any pet owner at this point is, as we get into this spring, really think hard. What can you do to reduce pet stress? Now I'm talking like the back door.
Yeah.
You got room for a doggy door? Yes or no? If you got a doggy door, is the fence in good shape? Lots of dominoes here, but right now is a great time, fresh set of eyes, go look and see what you can do to remove these tiny little stressors from your home and from your life.
Pet stress. Now you just triggered me. Because now that's a daily irritant. And if you could make your pet ownership more convenient and more enjoyable for you and your pet. That fixes the vibe in your home. That's for sure. Yeah.
Changes things dramatically.
Okay, not too bad, though. And then you did talk about gardening, so I suppose we'll touch on that when we come back. So, all right, you're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
This is what the holidays are all about. Three buddies sitting around chewing gum, huh?
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis.
I mean, I can't think of any better way to celebrate National Flannel Day than to put on your flannel shirt and sit around with your friends and chew gum.
Maybe whittle something,
Absolutely. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbert from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And yes, today is National Flannel Day, and we'd love to hear how you're celebrating. I've got my flannel shirt right behind me. There's video evidence. It's right there on the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page and the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page, where we're showing the show live there. And we also invite you to call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989 and weigh in on the topics of the day, especially, with all this rain. Hopefully you're staying dry. Hopefully your house is surviving, And also we invite you to go to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and like the page and share the page. So in a minute, we're going to... Max, you said we have a text before we get to this other piece of business.
Of course, yes.
Okay.
So,
what did the texter have to say?
So Howard texted in. They're showing me a little love today, I guess because of my love of history. They said, Max, good morning, Max. I really like your Max history notes during this week. And they said, if you ever want to learn a lot more about Memphis history, to give him a call. They said between a guy named Joe Lowry and him that they know a lot about Memphis history.
Okay, Howard. All right. Hey, Howard, thanks for listening. Thanks for chiming in. And yeah, Max, we don't sing his praises enough. Max puts in a lot of effort behind the scenes, and Max is a very good writer, too. And you do your daily deviations, right? I mean, you have
my weekly snapshots, my daily deviations. And on Rescue 901, I do my graveyard shifts, which is all about the criminal history of Memphis.
Yeah, I don't know who the voice guy is that does that. They sound weird, Max.
Probably my grandfather.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. But, yeah, good job. And thanks for chiming in, Howard. And we'd love to hear from you. We want your thoughts, and we respond in real time. So, if you want to be heard on the air, this is the time to do it. So in a minute, we're going to Allan, actually, with his week in review, really sparked some new directions in the conversation. So we're going to get to that in a minute. Before we do, though, of course, we want to salute our good buddy Larry Brown with Brown Refrigeration. I mean, the guy has created what's an institution here in the Mid-South. HVAC, that is his game. They've been doing it for
40 years.
40, getting closer to 50 these days.
Goodness.
And with no end in sight. I mean, they have created a great business culture over there. Brown Refrigeration is always at the cutting edge of technology. And it's interesting how technology's evolved. It's gone from an HVAC system to incorporating a clean air system with the Remy Halo system. That is just sort of part of the typical. That's what you're going to want in your HVAC. You've got the Remy Halo system, which has the UV power of the sun, cleaning the air that goes through your system, and then also turbocharging it so that every air molecule that comes out of that system is cleaning every surface that it hits, which is really fascinating to ponder. I wonder if it's cleaning our lungs and everything like that. I have to believe it is. Well, it's not hurting them, that's for sure.
Well, less organic particulate, happier lungs.
Pretty cool, man. So it's just a great way to, it's just a great way. It's the most complicated system in your home, and you need somebody that is an expert in that field. And it's always a good idea too to stay in touch with Brown Refrigeration and have them pay a visit to your home once or twice a year for a nice little tune-up, which is usually just a lot of preventative maintenance. And it's always a good idea to get, we were just talking about getting a fresh set of eyes on things. When you have Brown Refrigeration visit, they can inspect your system and help you anticipate, maybe its lifespan, and so you can start preparing. And they also have great financing. They have it's just a great business culture, and they answer their phones, which I love.
Absolutely.
You can get in touch with them directly at 901-362-1881 or go to their website, brownref.com. Well, if you're just tuning in, Allan, in his week in review, he said something. Actually, you said many things, but one thing you did say, we were talking about alleviating pet stress.
Yes.
You just sort of threw that comment out, but I'm thinking, all of us, many of us have pets, and boy, if your home isn't set up for pets, or if your temperament isn't pet friend or whatever, man. You got to make their life easier to make your own life easier, I think. But
well,
I don't know.
In a roundabout sort of way, I have what I call the chicken parable.
Of course, yeah.
A friend of mine, a friend of mine years ago, lives in outside Memphis, rural area, and decided, like most new country people, she thought it'd be fun to have a chicken or two. And so she went and read some stuff and looked at some things online, and if humanly possible, made her life as miserable as she could.
Yeah.
And when I went to see what she had done, I looked at all this and I said, okay, all right, rule number one about having any type of critter in your life is the human comes first. So I know the chicken's 2 foot tall and you built a 4 foot tall pen. You are 5 foot tall,
right?
So you need a 7 foot tall pen so the human can get in here and do things comfortably. The chickens will figure it out.
Right.
You know, and, so it's kind of that lesson has stuck, and I call it the chicken parable because, all right, so, happens a lot. You have a child move back home from college or been away at something. They come back with
a pet. Yeah.
The pet. Cat,
we're in that
dog,
exact situation
bird,
now. Yeah.
Of now suddenly you got something else in your house. And to be honest, the minute you do something like a doggy door, that changes your life. I'm dead serious.
If it's the right situation, those things are great. Yeah, then you're not letting
Now the animal can let itself in and out, come and go as it pleases. It's got a safe area to go into. And now you are not constantly interrupting your day.
Well, the other thing about a doggy door, since we're talking about it, because actually I'm installing one on the job I'm on. If you haven't followed dog door technology recently, there are, I guess they're called smart doors, where because the first thing somebody thinks of is, well, I'm concerned about security. I don't want somebody crawling in through my doggy door. Well, they do have ones that they basically can lock. They can, and they're activated by the dog's collar or something, so they are safer.
I was about to say, do they have facial recognition for Fido?
They're getting there. I mean,
it's pretty close. It's it's kind of like Japanese toilets. You had no idea that much tech could go into something that simple.
Oh yeah.
It's one of these little things that when you really, and I'm going to use your favorite phrase, admit your lifestyle, and you really and lean into it. And suddenly, having the cat is an absolute joy. Having a dog or two is indeed good for your stress level and lowers your blood pressure because they're not making you crazy.
Right. And maybe they're protecting your house and things like that.
You might even get the bonus of them doing their job for a change.
But some people, I hate to say it, and it's not maybe them, it's just maybe their circumstances, they don't really need a pet. I'll never understand why somebody would buy a dog if they live in a little 200 square foot apartment in New York or something. I mean, I feel bad for the dog in that situation.
I feel sorry for the guy that had the tiger.
Right.
That's actually a true story.
No, I don't doubt. But but even still, you might be perfectly set up for a pet, but maybe you're making your life more stressful because you haven't outfitted your home the way it could be. So maybe that's where a fresh set of eyes coming in from the outside.
And these days, pet tech has changed so much in the last 40 years.
There's an app for your phone. You can watch while you're at work.
Oh yeah,
Angela Martin. You can watch your cat.
You can watch them play and all that stuff. But the proper place for them to be, like maybe a carpeted cat tree with a little hidey spot at the top, utterly changes your cat's behavior and stress level.
Right.
And now it's not tearing up your furniture and making you crazy. It's hanging out and being, it's back to being your cute little buddy again.
Yeah. So I guess that's another good point, because I think the theme here in your week in review is just getting a second set of eyes on a problem. And so pet stress. But you talked about a time for gardening, so I feel like we better get into that too. So
a quick little side job this week was, of course, of a property that kept getting a lot of water in the front yard. So I go out and I look underneath the driveway, and of course the dirt has piled up at the culvert. Mm-hmm. They got a little culvert under there. So I'm kind of like
blocked it up, huh?
And I'm like, all right, let's get a let's get a shovel, let's get a hoe, and let's dig some of this out. And just as a happenstance, I was by there yesterday, and lo and behold, the front yard was not flooded. And water was actually moving where the water was supposed to go.
Right.
And that just made, and the homeowner was just ecstatic. And this was 30 minutes worth of work.
Did they even know they had a drain there? They probably didn't. Or maybe.
They hadn't really paid attention to it because, there's not a ditch here. It's not like, all right. Yeah. But there was enough of an impression there that the water would flow down the line of least resistance.
Right.
AKA where the original contractor envisioned the water flowing. And just leaves and stuff over the years had built up and was now back flowing into the yard. 30 minutes worth of work, and now the water was moving the direction the contractors and landscapers originally had set up. Less stress on the homeowner.
There you go.
The other big thing is when you start looking now, while you're not encumbered by all the vegetation, it's easier to see what you got to do.
Well, there's your trees and bushes aren't full of leaves.
Exactly.
Like that,
You're not out there with the wasp and the flies and the mosquitoes and bushes everywhere. And it's really easy to take a quick little walk around and go, why is this here?
Right.
This was here when I moved in. I've never liked it. I don't like it. Now is probably a really good time to get it taken out.
I have a question for you, though. Okay. I feel like this relates to gardening. If you've got tree limbs that you're thinking, these things probably need to go, is this the time to do it? Or because I know there's different times a year for tree limbs.
Well, right now, everything is still pretty dormant. I know we've had a big heat. I know we had winter.
It doesn't feel like it right now, but
we had winter trying to kill us for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then the last 3 weeks have been, whoa, hey, it's March already.
Yeah.
And so now is probably a great time to get hold of your arborist or your landscape people before they get really busy and get some of this stuff removed while it's nice and clean and easy to see.
When you say do it while they're dormant and everything, it sounds so nefarious, like an assassin coming while they're asleep at night.
Okay. Yeah, of course, Max has to make it sinister, but
people plant a lot of blueberry bushes, and they don't realize those things can get to be 15 to 20 foot tall. So if you're going to clean them up and trim them up, do it now while they're dormant so that you do get good growth as soon as they start coming out, and they won't look terrible like as if you did it in June.
Yeah. And I feel like, this is a good idea because if you procrastinate and you wait till the summer, they're full of leaves. It makes it a hassle.
Do it now. Get out there and take a look and get yourself a list and be ready.
Okay. Sounds good. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Floor feels a little gritty here.
Yeah, we ran out of floorboards there, so we painted the dirt. Pretty clever.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Sounds like one of Allan's weekend reviews.
Oh, I've been to that house.
Oh, yeah, you can do it. Just don't use oil base. It'll never dry.
Yeah, it'll get mold.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to watch the show on the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page and the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. And we also invite you to visit us on social media at Tool Talk Radio and check out the posts we've made over there, including our great moments in building history, where in honor of the big game, later in the show, we're going to be discussing the home of the first big game. I assume everybody knows what game I'm talking about, Allan, on Sunday. The Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, which is a lot older than people may realize. built in 1923. So.
And I'm awfully surprised that you'd want to salute that big game for reasons I won't explain just yet.
Oh, don't worry, I know. I can handle it, Max. So, but hey, I wanted to share something with our listeners, and I think this is exciting. It's also a little bit of cautionary tale or something, but we're at phase 2 of the operation that if you've been listening to Tool Talk for a while, you know that I'm in the middle of I built a laundry room for a customer. I built it's like an addition. This is coming off the back of the house, so this is all brand new construction. We poured poured new concrete and everything. And in addition to that, there's going to be a 2-car garage that is pretty big, and we made it oversized because this guy. I'll give a shout out, our buddy John and Amy, really nice couple. But John is a hobbyist, and one of his hobbies are those old like Toyota Land Cruisers, those big 4x4s, the things you would drive through the Sahara or through the jungles of Africa. Well, those things are actually extra tall. I mean, they're very tall.
Yeah, they're not small. No,
and they got big wheels and everything. So we made the carport bigger than normal. So this thing has spans going across like 24 foot by 23 feet across. It's a big open space, and so we can't just use the standard like 2x12 beam. So we're using what's called LVL, which stands for laminated veneer lumber.
Okay.
And so the beams we're using, they're going to be doubled up. They're 14 inches. They're literally 14 inches though. They're not the how like a 2x4 is really actually it's a 1.5 by 3.5. This is actually 14 inches, and it's 1 3/4 inches thick. And so we're working with beams that are like 24 to 28 feet long. This is big, and these things are heavy. And so the carport, I need to get these 11 feet off the ground. And it's been a very satisfying week through the use of basically in this situation, what I've done is I created a framing structure, more or less of supports and everything. They're temporary, of course. You build kind of like scaffolding. It reminds me a lot of like what you see, in like the 10 Commandments when they're putting up the, all the Egyptian stuff. But anyway, so I made these temporary supports, and through the use of like pulleys and leverage and science, it's actually I'm able single-handedly to lift these beams up to the position they need to be to secure them, to get the columns in place and everything. And it's really exciting, but it's also it's satisfying. But I don't think I would the DIYer out there, if you're going to attempt something like this, boy, do you got to be careful. And you got to think of every contingency, because what's interesting about jobs like this is you might not realize that the rig that you set up, if you don't do it carefully, you might look and go, all of the weight of this entire thing is resting on these 2 screws right here.
Yes.
So you have to have redundancy on top of redundancy or something,
All right. When this
and really
fails,
think scientifically when you're doing this.
When this fails, what keeps it from hitting me in the head?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if you noticed, but if you're out there and maybe you're into unique art or unique carpentry, on Facebook, I get this all the time, Allan. I get these, they call it a floating table. Like, and if you look at it, it looks like there's 5 chains. There's always like 5 chains. And at first glance, you're like, this thing looks like the tabletop is floating and these chains should, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But if you spend a second to study it, you're like, okay, well, I see where all the weight is going. And those those things sometimes too, I don't know how structurally sound they are, because all the weight of that table is on one little arm of the whatever. But it's the same with this. You have to really visually think it through, but when it works, it's pretty satisfying.
Well, one thing I'm going to point out about LVL is that stuff is heavy.
It's heavy, but it's not as heavy. If you had a beam that same size, it's actually lighter, which is helpful. But I mean,
it's a highly engineered product. This is not a LVL is not just your everyday run-of-the-mill lumber.
Well, you look at it, and if you're trying to visualize what LVL looks like, folks, it really does. It looks like a just super thick piece of plywood, which I guess it is, but it's engineered with so much, the glues and the polymers and everything. And it has a coating, too, because the water washes off this thing. Right. But it's amazingly strong. I mean, they said I'm doubling it up, and they said this thing will handle whatever. Anytime you do the plywood type thing,
you're doubling or tripling the strength of the natural wood because now you don't have a break line through the grain.
Right.
And especially if you're sistering them up and using them as your cross beams, that is incredibly strong.
And I want to say something else about this, because I'm not going to pretend I use this every day. This is sort of a unique circumstance. So, but one thing I'm really enjoying about this LVL is, at least the batch I've got, this stuff is straight as an arrow. It's not, because it's a plywood, like you say, you're not running into all the bowing and the twisting and the whatever. This stuff is really straight, which is helping me to get it level and attach, get a square attachment to it and everything. It's really cool. I really enjoy working with it, but boy, is it heavy. I mean, I don't know what the math is on this, but if I had I have a 28-foot beam, it's, like I said, it's like 14 inches by an inch. I mean, that's got to be a few hundred pounds, don't you think, Al?
Yeah, it's not. LVL is not light. But the big thing is you're really not worried about age and wear and tear on it because of the way the layers are put together. Very, very strong material.
It almost looks like a cake, and so what's strengthening it too is all of that glue and all the polymers and everything. Yep. So great material. It's not cheap. You know, one beam is like a few $100s. So I mean, but it's worth it because this way there's peace of mind, and I don't want anything crushing John's 4x4s underneath there or something. So, but I'll probably post some pictures as we get get it finished up. But I just wanted to share that. I thought that was pretty cool and an interesting experience. So, but let's shift gears. Let's get to our must-have item of the week, because we didn't get to it last week. We got chatty with our buddy Lynn Neal, but Allan, I'm holding this up to the camera, and it's on our Facebook page, but tell people what I'm holding up.
You are holding up a gauge. Welcome to electrical testing for a car.
Yeah, it's like a wire tester for a car. If you want to visualize, this thing looks like a screwdriver with a poker on the end.
Looks kind of like a dental device.
It kind of does, yeah.
Well, what dentist are you going to, Max? But
looks like
maybe a medieval dental.
A tooth scraper for a tiger. Maybe.
I've been accused of being raised in a lab, so
So one end clamps to the. Now this is not expensive. I think I got this for $15 or $20.
Right.
One end clamps to the battery of your car. The other end, you can poke it into a wire. So, Allan, you're the electrician. The clamp goes to your negative post, right?
Correct.
And then you poke the wire. And this is a very quick way to test whether a wire is burned out or hot. And if it's not, you may have a bad fuse or you may have a bad wire. But it's a quick, very useful tool to have if you're trying to test which wires are active.
What most people don't realize about their car is that the negative side of the car is the car.
Right, you can clamp,
so,
any piece of metal on there.
Well, I remember the first time I put in a car stereo system back in, the dark ages it was kind of a surprise because it only came with one wire.
There you go. So.
And all you need to do is get the positive side and connect the other side to the body of the car, and pop, on
Boom.
It came.
And I know they make them for your home as well, but it's a good tool to have, the auto wire tester.
Yes.
Well, hour 1 of Tool Talk Radio is in the can, but don't worry, we're coming back with hour 2, including our great moments in building history.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome to hour 2 of Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989, especially if you're out there celebrating National Flannel Day. I'm celebrating. I've got my flannel. I mean, in fairness, I celebrate most chilly days. I mean, I'm usually wearing a flannel shirt as part of my layering, Allan. It's always good. It's always a good kind of comfortable middle layer shirt. But today it's been immortalized, right, Max?
Correct. National Flannel Day, and it has a more storied history than you think.
Yeah, Max gave us a little bit of that. He was unpacking that a little earlier in the show. So if you want to come back and listen to it, you can check out the full report. We also invite you to watch the show at the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page and the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. And also, while you're in social media, scoot on over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and check out the posts we've made over there. So we've got some things on the table that we're pretty excited about. We should also mention, if you're just tuning in, that next week we'll be doing our first remote broadcast. We're going to be at the home show of the Mid-South over at the Agri Center. It's going on all weekend. It's a really great place. Boy, if you're in the market for doing some home renovations, or if you just want to get inspired, there's the latest in home technology, and we'll be there doing a Tool Talk Radio.
You mean
live.
first report? First live report for the year.
For the year, yeah, I'm sorry. That's right. Yeah, we usually do several, we do a handful throughout the year. This is the first one that always kicks off the tour. Is that what we call it? But if you wanna say hello to Allan and I, and Ditch is usually floating in and out of there too. But Allan, you have goodies too. There's a good reason to drop by the booth. You've always got some swag, which is always
there'll be a little swag available. You can come over and say hello, meet a few of the people from Geeky Side TV. They'll also be floating around with us.
Yeah.
So
it's always funny to me, like when you guys go to one of these things and they say, "Where's Brightwell?"
Yeah, Brightwell is like Jeff Brightwell is sort of
that's kind of like a Bigfoot sighting.
Yeah, he floats every now and again. Some of our other personalities, I've seen Tim Van Horn show up. I've seen, people, you don't know who you might meet over at the News Talk 98.9 The Roar tent. So stop by for sure, especially on Saturday when we'll be doing the show from there. So, and also coming up shortly, we've got our Great Moments in Building History, which is going to be very interesting, discussing the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, because that is the home of the very first big game. So we thought it was appropriate to discuss it this week. So, but Allan, we didn't tease this at the top of the show, but I do have it in my show notes. So we're going to get to that right now. Hit it, Max.
Oh my!
This armor's useless. Why do we even wear it? Oh, you stink!
This is the worst.
And, of course, that montage of Max's indicates we're going to discuss an historically terrible idea, which, it's wide open. It could be any point in history, something that maybe was a part of home improvement that just didn't age well, or maybe it was just actually a really bad idea. But today's historically terrible conversation is going to be all about lead-based paint. We talk about lead-based paint before, but this is a chance to maybe do a little bit of a deeper dive, and I'm looking forward to learning some things too, Allan. I don't know much about the origins of lead-based paint. I figured you could enlighten us. So,
well, let's go back to the Romans.
Yeah, I knew it went back pretty far.
Yeah, it's pretty much as soon as we discovered lead, we've been misusing it since day one. Lead's easy to manipulate.
It's a soft metal.
It's soft. Yeah. You can pound it with a hammer. You can make pipes out of it. You can make sealant out of it. You can do pretty much anything you want.
My question is where did they discover it?
Lead is found in a variety of natural formations all over the planet. So,
is there lead mining?
Yeah, yes. Oh, yes.
That's got to be good for the lungs and stuff.
Yeah. Welcome to industrial disease. Yeah. Just welcome to the world as we took advantage of what we could at the time. So if you were in Italy and you had a nice lead mine there, then guess what? You mined lead, and it was an easy, malleable substance. And it also lent itself, because it had such a low melting point, of being added to things. And to the point in certain points in history, and as a person who likes to play in the kitchen, I find this absolutely terrifying. But, powdered lead was even used as a flavoring agent in food, if you can imagine that.
Oh, I can imagine it.
So, yeah, Max just looks horrified.
Intrigued. Not horrified.
It's the same look on you. It's kind of hard to tell.
Well, Allan, so throughout history, we've had, even paint can include like things like beets or grapes or things that have anything that has color. You throw it into the pot. Why would you throw why would it occur to you to put melted lead into, and does it become liquefied? And
again, low melting point, the ability to powder it, its availability. Why would you use this stuff? Well, it made paint dry faster.
Okay.
And it gave it a pretty sheen. And I'll even throw in the modern of beautiful candelabras or chandeliers with that beautiful leaded crystal.
We've heard that term, yeah.
You've seen that term. That's because that glass is so pretty because it is up to 23% lead.
Wow. Okay.
So, I mean, some paint at one point was like 50-50 paint to lead to oil.
Really?
If you can imagine, like chromium white was a shocking amount of lead in this stuff. And the thing is, bugs didn't eat it. Well, it was poisonous. Bugs didn't eat it, so it was a great preservative. And it was just basically us not fully understanding what it was. We knew it preserved wood. We knew the bugs wouldn't eat it. But we really weren't getting what it was doing to us.
Yeah.
Which was lead poisoning. You know, it basically cooked your brain and a few other bodily organs. And even today, in a lot of your more art paints, there's still lead.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that because, I mean, it's funny because lead is not that far. You know, you're talking about the Romans, but it continued throughout history.
Oh,
might explain a lot of stuff. Because you said it affects brain function, right?
Yeah, it does some pretty terrible things to your bodily organs, including your brain. It's not good for you. It is definitely not good for you. And most of this was banned by the 70s.
Yeah.
But that means there's a lot of it still out there.
Especially in these older homes. So that's what we're going to unpack when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio. Pretty interesting conversation. And we're going to continue when we come back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan. With Joe and Allan.
There's something about an underdog that really inspires the unexceptional.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
How appropriate.
Not too many people can so artfully articulate an insult as, Robert California. Well done, sir. James Spader rocks. I mean, let's just face it. And And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. And if you Max, I want to salute you on your daily deviation. That was a dramatic one. I hope everybody was listening to that. So very well done, sir.
I can't wait till he figures out what the ship named the Essex was famous for.
Okay. All right. Whatever.
I do know what the Edmund Fitzgerald was about.
Okay. Anyway, I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry, and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and the very articulate and dramatic Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. Like our buddy who chimed in earlier today. That was
Howard.
Howard, he had compliments for Max as well. Max is sort of gaining his own fan base out there. It's pretty exciting. So if you want to chime in, like we said, the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline, 901-683-0989. You can also interact with us on the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and send us messages and check out the posts we've made over there. And also, if you want to watch the show, go to the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page and the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. I'm sort of mixing things up as I set the table there, Allan, but whatever. All the information gets out there. But before the break, we were talking in our historically terrible discussion all about lead-based paint, which you've been it's funny because we talk about lead-based paint. It never really occurred to me why there's lead in paint, but you were explaining that it kind of, I'm assuming it probably helps it harden, it helps it dry better, it produces a nice sheen to the paint. But also, it's very dangerous, and it's not good for our brains and probably our lungs or anything else, right? It's just not good. We don't need lead in our bodies. So, but and that's kind of where we're coming at it in this conversation because it was only banned in the 70s, and in fact, you said even some paints still contain it today. Yeah. But now we're in a situation where some of the homes that we live in, underneath the surface, we have lead-based paint, and you may do some renovations, and now you're stirring it up, and that's something to think about. So I mean,
Well, that brings up, it brings up a lot of things because most of the stuff that we hear about, lead-based paint, asbestos, other substances that were, were integrated into our homes as great ideas at the time, turned out to be, well, not so hot an idea.
right.
But the good news is, so long as this stuff is stable, sedentary, undisturbed, it's not a big deal.
It's
not
not
that big a
going
deal.
from if it's sitting over there on the door trim of your house, it's not going into your lungs or anything else. But until you start stirring it up.
Well, the problem is sooner or later you're going to renovate. Something's going to have to be fixed, torn down, moved, whatever. And that is where, when you begin disturbing these things, that's the problem. So let's just say you are looking at buying a turn-of-the-century home, and I'm talking about 120 years ago, not 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And these are still a lot of really great buildings out there. They're wonderful homes that people have kept up for a very long time, but you're going to be looking at those windowsills, and they got a lot of paint on them. They got a lot of paint.
Sorry. I have a question because if you have a home that's 100 years old, was all paint lead based, or was there ever a paint back in the day that didn't have any lead in it, or were they even thinking about it?
Well, good luck on figuring out which was which.
So you should just assume there's lead paint. If you have an older home before the 70s, you should assume there's lead paint,
the
right?
safe assumption is assume you do.
Okay.
And have it tested.
Yeah.
The good news is you can get lead test.
I think you can go to the paint store and get those. So,
so the good news is today, our modern technology, you can, go get your knife and cut you out a little piece, throw it in the test, and it will let you know whether or not you're going to be dealing with lead-based paint or not. Is it the end of the world to have lead-based paint? Well, again, no, so long as it's covered by something modern, stable, and sealed away. Or if you are going to be tearing something out, know that you're dealing with this and remediate appropriately. Do you need a white suit? Do you need a respirator? Do you need goggles? Do you need, so there's a lot of things to take into consideration. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. Having disassembled a number of old homes,
right,
I would be wearing at minimum a respirator and goggles if they had a cat. I'll be honest. Just to be honest, because there's so much dirt and dust and just
unpleasant
biological
stuff to
material. And I hate to say it, but 80 to 90% of the dust in your home is you.
Well, we know that.
It's skin.
People are eating
it's
breakfast,
hair.
so we won't lean into that. But
let's just be honest. It's there.
Here's a question too, Allan, because when I think of I've worked in older homes myself.
Yeah.
It's not so much when you're pulling the door trim off, because that's you're going to pry it off. It's probably going to come off mostly intact. I'm thinking more along the lines, if you had any lead-based paint on the plaster or on the whatever, that's where it's going to
now you're going to
aerosol
sand
and it's going to get really, And definitely get home, take a shower, shake out your clothes, go, I guess, get those clothes.
Launder the clothes immediately.
Right away. But
the biggest thing is test. Do not assume.
Yeah.
If you have any doubt in your mind, and all right, so your house, let's say your house was built in 1978.
Right. Right on the cusp. Yeah.
Did that contractor still have a warehouse full of paint?
Yeah.
Did they not?
That's a good point. They could, because paint has a shelf life. If you take care of it, sometimes it could last 4 or 5 years.
It could be there for a little bit of, so if your house was built in like 1980, pretty much by then, I think the band was really good and in, and I don't think you're worried about it from then on.
Okay.
And yes, 1980 was forever ago. That was 40 years. But in building terms, 40 years really isn't that long.
No.
It really isn't, especially with, I'll pick on our buddy Jay Hill with architectural roofing and all the new stuff we have these days. Mm-hmm. Getting a building to last 100 years or more is pretty straightforward now.
Right.
So could you hit lead paint? Yes. Freak out? No. But understand you have, once you know it's there, now you have to disclose it, and you probably need to take remediation measures.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of this is just common sense, but you don't get in there willy-nilly with the sledgehammer and the whatever and just start
The biggest
demoing
thing
and
is
not-
don't get in there willy-nilly with the sander.
Well, and also, that's a good point, but also seal off the, if you're just doing one room, don't let this stuff get into your air ducts and spread out throughout the rest of the house. Because if you want to know the truth, that's one of my pet peeves on any job site. If I'm doing any kind of remodeling interior, I isolate that space down to putting plastic over the door frame, because I just think it's rude too. Filling somebody's house with dust.
The other thing is make sure that your air vents are closed off to that area, because you don't want to be sucking all that dust into the filters and into the fins of their HVAC system.
And that stuff's insidious. It gets everywhere.
It does. So lead-based paint, it is still a factor. So again, test, don't assume.
And today we have even our oil-based paints are still safer than,
we're light years ahead of the way the world was back in the 60s and 70s.
Okay, good stuff there, Allan. So I want to shift gears though, because boy, we woke up today, here in the Mid-South to thunder. I woke up to some thunder and lightning and also torrential rains. And it's funny because when I was looking out the window, I was thinking about several things, but the one thing I wasn't even thinking about is my roof going to leak? It didn't even faze me, because I, like you, Allan, have a roof that was replaced by our good buddy Jay Hill from Big M Roofing and Remodeling. I remember the days not that long ago before I met Jay Hill where every time we had a rain like this, I was dreading it, because we had issues with our roof. And Jay Hill came along, and for one thing, we had roofs. We had damage that was covered by our homeowners insurance, which is we'll get to that in a second. But Jay is a master elite installer. He's all about the exterior protection of your home, from the roofing to gutters to siding to windows. But we always lean heavily into his roofing expertise, because he's like we said, a GAF master installer. He's always 5 stars with the Better Business Bureau. And one of the noteworthy things about GAF is they are always at the cutting edge of all roofing technology, to the point where they've developed roofing systems. And these systems are so effective that they offer a lifetime transferable warranty, which you talk about peace of mind, too. That's the other thing. If you have an issue, they're covered, and you could sell the home, and the new homeowner is still covered. That's backing up your work. That's standing behind your work, and that's what it is. It's craftsmanship done very well. Jay is also another person that's created a great business culture. He gets the best technicians, the best the best installers, and that's because he's a great person to work with. He's also a former insurance agent, which, as we said, is a great service, because if you have any damage to your roof or to your home that's covered by your homeowner's insurance, that's a process that you need really an advocate to help you with that, and Jay can be that advocate. He's also got 30 lenders at his disposal. He's got a great he just does great work and stands behind his work, and he also brings a lot of optimism and positive energy to a job site, which I always appreciate. He's a great dude. We can't say enough about Jay Hill. You can call him directly at 901-484-5645 and visit him on his website, bigmroofingandremodeling.com. Well, Allan, this is the weekend of the big game. And so in honor of that, when we come back in our Great Moments in Building History, we're going to talk about the home of the first big game, the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
I've been trying to make you know about safety without actually learning about safety the way I did, by not listening to my mom when that snake jumped out of the policeman's boombox.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
I lost track of what he was saying halfway through that sentence. What a convoluted, weird proclamation that was. Sounds like Futurama, am I right, Max? So
Adventure Time,
close enough. And welcome back
John
to
DiMaggio still.
Same voice actor. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and the befuddling Max behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989, especially if you're out there celebrating National Flannel Day, which is we're celebrating here for sure. We're going to have a big flannel party later on. Also, we invite you to watch the show. There's two ways to do that. You can go to the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page or the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. And also, while you're on social media, scoot on over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and check out the posts we've made over there, including our great moments in building history, which we're going to discuss right now.
And now, great moments in building history.
And once again, I set it up redundantly by saying great moments in building history, and then I stepped on the, sorry, Max.
Don't worry, I was a bit redundant earlier with Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Okay, yeah, see, live radio, this is what this is what you get. You get what you pay for, right? I mean, hey, it's a free product, more or less. So, but Allan, this is interesting. In honor of the big game, and I don't know why we have to say the big game, but I think that's probably just best practices.
Yes, you do.
Why? That entity
because they have lawyers.
The entity that produces the big game is do they watch what you say. So,
yes, they do.
In honor of that, I thought, what the heck? Let's visit let's celebrate the home of the very first big game, which wasn't called that. I think it was just called the AFC NFC Championship. Something boring.
Something like that.
And I think branding wise, it was a good idea to change the name to something more exciting, which they did. But anyway, that's the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, and we should say that the memorial is. It was built in 1923, so what they were memorializing was all the veterans of World War I, which, boy, you talk about a brutal war. I mean, just,
Yep.
So they wanted to make this a big showpiece for Los Angeles and really for the country at large. It's very classically designed. It's got you look at that, and it is not unlike the architecture you'd see in ancient Greece or ancient Rome or something. And we're going to discuss that, but also just some of the history of the event. And it's probably even going to stray into some of the character of this venue as well. So, but there's a lot of there's just a lot of intrigue with this, So let's unpack it a little bit.
Okay, well, let's go with the fact that we were in a post-World War era. We were at the opening bell of the car.
Yeah, that's true. This was built. You have to think about parking because it seats, 80,000 at a football game.
Well, but you could never get 80,000 people anywhere before now.
Right.
Wait,
hey, I do have a question
buggy?
for you.
You're not going to get 80,000 people someplace.
Sorry, one thing that I didn't, and I'm asking you because I didn't even research this, but aren't we also at the beginning of when they reinstituted the Olympics? Because wasn't the Olympics sort of right at the beginning of the 20th century? We've had Olympics throughout history, but this is when they said, okay, we're going to bring
these back. Right.
And this was built with a mind towards that, right? Because they hosted the Olympics 9 years later.
Well, it was built towards a lot of things, but we're going to have to start with, we're going to have to go back to Roger Rabbit and talk about cars. Because
that is true.
Los Angeles, one of the first cities to really experience urban sprawl.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody wanted to go out there for that beautiful weather.
LA's getting big.
The ocean.
And LA also at that point was really kind of freaking out because we really didn't know how to build roads yet.
And building a road in L.A. is not as easy. You got hills, you got valleys, you got a lot of landscape to work around.
So, and here they come, and I believe it was the Parkinson firm back then that went, okay, we need sports. And we're going to get classic about this. We're going to memorialize our boys back from the war theater. And Europe weighed heavily on their mind, and they built this thing that held 50,000 some odd people at the time. I think today's capacity is like 78,000.
Yeah, it's close to 80, depending on what you. Now, if you
depending on what you
if you have an event like Billy Graham back, he had 134,000 in 1963. So you put chairs on the infield and everything.
This is a. I mean, especially for the time. I mean, the hard thing here is we were really building big stuff.
Right.
Dams. We were building some of the largest dams in the world at this time.
Right.
We're engineering rivers at this time because we now had trucks.
Right.
And we could get material to someplace. So welcome to who had the vision to build. And I mean, if you really have to kind of stop for a moment and imagine a space capable of holding 50 or 60,000 people.
Yeah.
When before the biggest thing you'd ever seen was a park stadium with bleachers.
I want to ask you something though, because this is what's interesting when you look at the Memorial Coliseum. Okay, because you can, one thing that's nice, this was in the 20s, so there was plenty of photo evidence and there was plenty of construction photos that you can reference. Well, here's the difference. Okay, Soldier Field in Chicago, They started with a flat surface, and they built a stadium on top of it. Well, the Coliseum, if you look at the how they built it, it's built into it's almost like, it looks like it's on a hill, and they carved it out. They almost scooped. It's like scooping it out. They didn't. So it's built into the land, you could say. I know Sun Devil Stadium in Arizona is similar. Well, Allan, that must create its own challenges because now you're also in a place where there is seismic activity. I mean, Los Angeles gets earthquakes,
Yes.
but was there an advantage or disadvantage to building it this way? Because this is not a freestanding structure. It's literally built into the hill.
Yes.
So I'm curious about that.
Well, all right, if you go look at the Roman Coliseum, the Roman Coliseum is a freestanding structure all the way around.
Right.
Which means, and the other thing people have to remember, human beings have weight.
Yeah.
And when you are trying to support,
we shift. Yeah.
Well, and you're trying to support all of that, and we're going to call it fluid weight at a time. When you built the Colosseum in Rome, everything had to support all of that. Now, by where they chose to put this in, they had nature providing them, hey, at least a hillside support for quite a bit of this.
Right.
So we could ramp up the sides without having to completely support absolutely every square inch of this place. So that's how they were able to get away with building it for a little over $1 million at the time.
Yeah, which to me seems cheap, but even in 1923, I guess that was a pretty sizable amount.
That was a big chunk of money. But they used nature, and this was kind of weird for this time, to look at nature and go, that would save us millions of cubic yards of concrete because we've already got bedrock and dirt. We can use that. And they did.
And it's one, and I have to wonder if that was part of the reason. This thing it's open. It's a very open field.
Yes.
They don't have an upper deck. I mean, they do have skyboxes today, but still, it's not. It just feels like a large open space. So.
It is. It's absolutely massive, but it's also in L.A., who doesn't have anywhere near the amount of rain we get.
Right. You very rarely get rained out.
You couldn't have done this here. Another big thing to consider is football already existed.
Yeah.
So they already had an idea of, professional football been around since 1880, 1890.
But what was interesting back in the day, I guess, college football was more, it was more prestigious than professional football was like just, a bunch. It
was a bunch of guys we paid
whatever.
to keep over there. Yeah. But they already had football in mind. But when they built this, they also had the Roman Coliseum in mind with the fact that we have to be able to make this multi-use.
Oh, yeah, because exactly.
So we got to be able to have baseball games, which is America's pastime, especially back then. We had to be able to have a Wild West show, which were massively popular, something
Races,
we don't really see so much.
They even had, after World War II in June 1945, something called the Patton and Doolittle, where they had like tanks on the field.
Yes. So this thing it's really, really, massive, and it's hard for some place that doesn't have something this big to imagine it.
Yeah.
So if you've been to a Superdome or you've been to one of these gargantuan coliseums, just remember LA was the first one. No one in the United States had really seen anything like this.
Well, when they built it, it was billed as the greatest stadium in the world. I have to believe it was one of the earliest. I don't know if Europe had any comparable to this. I think this might have been the biggest in the world at its time.
Let's just start with the Roman Coliseum got seen by American GIs.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of really old works that Americans didn't really know anything about until World War I. A lot of Americans went over. A lot of Americans saw a lot of Europe. And when they came back, they were like, so architects and people were influenced, and the Parthenon in Nashville got built.
Yeah.
Again, massive works going on in the United States, dams, reservoirs, huge things like the Coliseum. So welcome to the effect.
And it's a nice feel. I mean, it's got a very cool architecture.
Exactly.
It holds up. I mean, it's 100 years old, but it doesn't look dated. I think some of the structures we have today are not going to age nearly as well as something like this. And they built this, and they've done renovations with the mindset, we're not going anywhere. This is a historic landmark. This is supposed to be here for another 100 years. So,
and one thing they paid attention to was the sheer level of impact that you got when you walked through that little tunnel and you opened up to where you could now see the seating in the field.
Mm-hmm.
It is stunning. This thing makes you grab scale. That you're very tiny, and this place is really, really huge.
And but you're connected to it creates an energy. We talked when we did our great moments in building history, all about the Royal Albert Hall in England. We didn't just talk about the architecture. We talked about the kind of the experience it creates and the emotions it stirs up when you walk into that space. And the LA Coliseum is similar. In fact, I hope we unpack that a little bit when we come back.
We're going to talk about that rush when you walk out there. Your expectations of what you're about to participate in go up.
And I mean, there's been no shortage of historical events that have taken place there. And I think that translates to, it creates a very interesting aura in a structure.
It gives it a vibe. You are correct.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that, too. That's going to be interesting. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar, Memphis. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan. News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis.
You mentioned Al Borland passing in the background for an hour ago, and this is what you get.
That's what you get on National Flannel Day. Exactly. Very appropriate, Max. Finally, an appropriate rejoinder.
There we go.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and the astute Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to watch the show on the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page and the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. And check out the posts we've made on social media at the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page. In a minute, we're going to get back to our discussion of great moments in building history as we consider the spirit of the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. We've talked a little bit about its design and its construction, but Max, you and Allan said something off the air that I think has to be said. If you've been listening to the entire show, I hope you listened to Max's brilliant daily deviation what was that, the top of the hour, Max?
It was the top of the hour of this hour.
But that spurred a conversation. It was all about a famous ship and
a famous shipwreck, yes.
Okay, but what were you saying, Allan, about the USS Essex? Because you want Max to do a daily deviation on this?
Yeah, I can't. Like I said, I just can't wait till he reads up on the Essex, and I want to see what his take is on that.
And so I read the article, and one of the things that struck me was the phrase "whale attack."
So wait, the USS, they're attacking whales?
No, the whales attack them.
It was a whaling ship sunk by a great big sperm whale.
And if you think that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
It does.
So this was a true. So Moby Dick was inspired by a true story.
Yes.
The USS
Yes.
Essex.
Are we allowed to talk about what happened? Because it's breakfast time.
Tread lightly, Max, because from what I understand, yeah.
Let's just say that Ishmael might have been part. I'm a home for dinner. Might have been part of dinner.
Yeah.
Cannibal. Okay, we're not going to expand, but I guess do a deep dive on the USS.
Literally.
Of course, Allan would gravitate towards an event like that.
I mean, we had Agent 732, and we were talking about wallpaper. Talk about the book, The Yellow Wallpaper, which is all about a woman going crazy because of her wallpaper pattern.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, but I was intrigued when I learned that because I thought I didn't know it was that. I didn't know Moby Dick was inspired by a event. I thought it was by more of a theme.
It took place around November 1820.
Okay. Well, hey, before we get back to our great moments in building history, if you're intrigued by the mind of Allan Gilbreth, which have fun with that, you may be interested in learning more about darkoakmedia.com. And how do they do that, sir?
All they got to do is go onto the internet, pop over to darkoakmedia.com. We also have all of Tool Talk Radio in full podcast on both Spotify and YouTube. So you can just go to tooltalkradio.com. So we've been very popular. I'd like to big shout out to all of our listeners in New Zealand again.
Oh, yeah.
Our big second home away from home down there. Quite a few listeners down there. I love the fact that we're now being listened to in Spain.
I'm
having a lot of fun with that.
I think it's exciting, but I'd still love to hear from them. I'd love to hear what their challenges
and stuff
are.
from you guys. Yeah. Of the biggest thing going on right now, of course, Mardi Gras is coming up. So all of our haunted New Orleans stuff is just, going crazy on YouTube. So
yeah, you're very well connected in New Orleans. I mean, you've traveled there many times, I know, and you've got friends that are few of them are a little out there. They're on the fringes of society, but
no, they're right in the dead center, Joe. They're right in the middle of New Orleans.
Okay.
We even invented a king cake cookie truffle that we did on the Food Dude this week.
Oh yeah, that's another reason
we had
to
a
listen
blast
to Memphis Morning News on Thursday mornings. You get the Food Dude, and
yep. I come in and feed the radio people. So we've had a great week.
Okay, cool. So darkoakmedia.com. Awesome. And also, just a reminder, next weekend on Saturday, we'll be broadcasting live from the home show of the Mid-South. We'll be doing Tool Talk. Actually, I guess they open right after we're off the air. So when the show's over, come by the booth and say hello. Allan will have some swag, and we hope you'll listen on the way there. But that's always a lot of fun. It's going to be at the Agri Center all weekend. It's a great place to get ideas for your home. It's a great place to meet contractors, to learn about the cutting edge of home improvement technology. So we'll be there next Saturday. In our great moments in building history, in honor of the big game tomorrow, we were discussing what was billed at the time as the greatest stadium in the world, the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. And we should say it was the host of the first big game, which was called, we should say it was Kansas City versus Green Bay. Green Bay won in a pretty decisive victory. It was probably a pretty boring game, actually. It looked to me like it was a blowout. I think, what was it, Max? Like 35-10 or something like that.
I don't have the score on my.
It wasn't great. What year was that, though? I don't know why I'm not seeing it. Was it 68 maybe or 67? I didn't,
Yeah, actually, I remember it was on television.
I got pages of notes here, but in that, what we were discussing.
67.
Okay, 67. So I was close. So one thing we were discussing, and you mentioned it as we went to break, Allan. You walk into a structure like the Coliseum here, and for one thing, you're struck by its scale. It has an emotional effect on you. It definitely makes an impact. And there's been so much history. There's been so many millions of people that have come and gone through the Coliseum there. There's been every kind of event. I mean, you talked about tank battles. There's been every kind of concert, every big act, U2 or Bruce Springsteen or the Rolling Stones. Anybody big has come through and performed there. The Pope's said mass there. Billy Graham's been there. Nelson Mandela has spoken there. Presidents have spoken there. I think when you have a structure like that, or when you host events like that, it creates a certain aura, and I don't think this is some new age gobbledygook. I just think it genuinely does. In our collective conscious and whatever, it really it leaves its mark on a venue like that, and it's definitely true at the Coliseum here.
Well, it's like the difference between we're going to go to the movies and we're going to go to the Orpheum.
There you go. Perfect.
You know, your expectations are raised. So, I mean, let's think about the siblings of the Memorial Stadium, because the 30s was FDR's New Deal. So
he spoke there. Yeah.
FDR spoke there, but you think about it, some of the other projects going on while they're building this are also very, very impressive, because Hoover Dam.
Well, it
right
seems
there.
like we were starting to master concrete, because this was a massive concrete project.
These are huge. The Triborough Bridge was built at that time. LaGuardia Airport, Chickamauga Dam here in Tennessee. How about the Lincoln Tunnel? These are all just massive things. The centerpiece of New Orleans, the City Park, was built in the 30s. So we had really gotten our hands around production, scale, and like you said, a lot of concrete.
One thing, though, I did want to mention, though, because to tie this into home improvement is basically, though, like we said, it does create an aura and it creates a vibe. I think if your home should be that way as well. It should be lit, and it should be laid out in a way that is bound to spur positive memories and make it fun to interact there, and that will create its own vibe in a home and everything. Well, and I don't know, I'm always fascinated with the spirit of a structure, and this one's got a very interesting spirit.
To tie it back into our very first segment today, that fresh set of eyes looking forward to, instead of looking back at what you've been doing, kind of look forward. What do you want to do next?
Yeah.
It's time to revamp the home and get ready to get into that next era of exploration of your life.
And a good way to wrap this up, with the renovations they've done to the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, they've never destroyed its spirit. They've done massive, it's state of the art, and yet it's retained its original spirit. So you could do worse than to emulate what they've done over there. So.
Absolutely.
Well, another show. I almost wish we had 3 hours today, Alan, but we don't. But another episode of Tool Talk Radio is in the can, but it's time to get out of here. So on behalf of my buddy Allan Gilbreth and our pal Max over there behind the glass, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening to Tool Talk Radio, and we'll see you next week.